you're going to exceed, if you want to go and try to plan a load like really, really well, at least in my opinion, then you would ideally want to probably try to plan where the driver could stop ahead of time in any given area. And I don't necessarily think like there's a limited set of options like the general public, truck parking spots out on the near the highways. But if you actually had kind of a more truck parking club democratized coverage in varying different places across the country, like, do you see that actually could have a positive impact on carrier efficiency, not only just ease of making it easy for the drivers?
Yeah, so you're asking really about like route optimization and having route optimization due to the fact that there's a lot of truck parking club properties and leveraging that to be more efficient in business. Is that essentially what you're asking?
Yeah, because instead of having, let's say, a rest stop or truck stop every, what is it, probably, I don't know actually what it is, but every maybe 20 miles or something like that on the general highways, then you might have kind of like 2 or 3 truck parking club locations in between those rest stopping facilities.
Hey.
This guy.
Nice of you to join.
Dude, I won't even explain to you what happens, but I'm here.
Hey, good to see you, Reed. Nice to see you on the show. You're 21 minutes late.
Gosh.
No big deal.
Dude, I can't even. I'm not even gonna tell you.
No, this is a great question. Oh, are you gonna tell your story? Tell your story, bro.
No. It's a distraction, and it's not even very good. My alarm didn't go off. I overslept. We were up. It's 6 a.m.
You gotta have
here.
a better story than that, bro.
No, well, I mean, we were up.
It's not really that good of a story.
We were up.
I have the best story.
All right, fine. You can come 20 minutes next time. So.
We were up.
I overslept. I have the best. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, Christian. Let me summarize your question here. Your question is. To what extent do we become a strategic asset to a fleet beyond just a place to park for a night? Essentially,
that's a better way to frame the question.
Yeah. Okay. So, Evan, do you want to answer that one? You want me to do it?
I mean, it seems like you're on a roll. So
yeah. So we're already at a place where that's happening. Our many fleets tell us that if we were to go away, they would no longer be able to operate the way that they're operating. So we're folks are using us as drop yards. Folks are using us as a place to really ensure that the drivers can get further down the road than they otherwise would have, because they know they're going to have a place, right? So they don't. And you've driven before, Christian, so you probably understand this.
Yeah.
When you know you've got a spot, you can go. You don't have to budget, an hour of your time to ensure that you can get parked before your hours run out. So that is in and of itself a very simple example of how this, can improve your operations.
It also wasn't exactly super straightforward necessarily to when you're on the road to try to use any of the apps, because I think there was 1 or 2 apps at the time with at Pilot or Flying J that they would have 10 or 15 reserved spots that you could book with those apps, but it wasn't super straightforward to use them. And then it also wasn't that easy to just drive an 80,000-pound vehicle while also trying to book a spot to park in. So, and you also didn't know beyond those reserve spots if there's actually anything there. So
it's one thing that I was kind of pulling on my past experience. Obviously, I've not been a driver, but I've only been a broker. And when I started kind of working with these guys early on, I hadn't really put on my broker hat and thought about the use cases, outside of just the daily parking. But once I started to kind of think a little bit outside the box, I was even from the fleet standpoint as well, drop yard, place to leave extra equipment, place to, and drop yard means a bunch of things too. It means a place to relay loaded trailers. It means a place to, if you've got a new customer that you're trying to, maybe a customer is demanding like, or wants you to lease more trailers so you can take on extra work with them and start a drop program. Like there's just, and then there's probably, innumerable examples of scenarios where we can be useful to a fleet and to a brokerage, because brokers are really doing the same thing in some situations now, leasing trailers, etc. Um, there's probably so many examples I can't even come up with right now, or even Evan couldn't come up with right now. So it's going to be exciting to see those revealed to us, because I think they will be revealed to us in some situations, because I think fleets are already using us in ways that we probably can't even imagine. We just don't know. Do you think that's a fair thing to say, Evan?
Yeah, I think we created a self-service app and website, and now our customers, our members, are really using it in ways that we never could have predicted, which is awesome, right? It's the point of creating something self-service, and we're now analyzing the way they're using it and trying to make it even more useful for a greater set of people based on the ways that it's currently being used that we really didn't see it being a use case.
You should get somebody from Airbnb over on the team, because I think there's a lot of. I mean, I would see a lot of similarities, especially if you have like a bunch of truck parking club locations, in a smaller city, that you'll probably end up seeing each provider, sorry, what do you guys call the people that
Property member.
property members, that they will start kind of like, I would say competing with each other, in a sense that they will try upselling and making their experience better, so that more people book with them.
Yeah, it's the beautiful thing about a marketplace, right? Is you create healthy competition, so not everyone sucks, right?
Yeah.
If you have 5 people in a market, someone in that market is going to decide to be the best, and by all means necessary. And if that's price, by all means, but also with trucking, people will pay more for more value, whether that's security, whether that's free showers.
Clean
And
showers.
we see it every day. Yeah, clean showers.
Yeah,
Free
I didn't get the courage enough. I didn't get enough courage to, when I was driving the truck, to go shower at the truck stops. I never tried that, but
Really?
yeah,
Those
personally,
showers are dope. Those
I
showers
did-
are dope, bro. Like,
I think I
I'm
just
not
needed to
joking.
try them once, but I actually never even went inside one.
Yeah.
So I didn't know.
I'm sure some are really bad, but if you go to like the major truck stops like Pilot, or I think I actually went to Iowa 80, which is a major truck stop as well.
Mhm.
Like, those showers are awesome.
And they're private.
You're
You
like
get a little private room for 30 minutes or whatever.
shower
at the time.
selfies.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's like the mental, like the dopamine you get from the fact that you've been in a truck the last 2 days, and then now you have this like hot shower, and like it's clean. I don't know, you get something euphoric from it. I'm not joking. It's like, wow, this is
The shower
awesome.
selfies from you and Chris's trip were pretty epic. So yeah,
And it's like a
those are
3
good.
a.m. shower, and it's
Wow.
just like, this is, I don't know. It was, yeah. Christian,
don't
you
know
got to
if
go
people-
back out on the road, and you got to use the shower.
Yeah, I feel like I gotta try this, and I don't think they'll allow like a whole camera production
Maybe you can
in their
start
broadcasting world, but
Don't ask.
maybe you
Don't
can
ask.
start truck parking shower club after this experience, Christian.
parking shower clubs.
Yeah, there you go.
I can see something. The wheels are turning.
Yeah, there'll be something there. Okay. Sorry I joined late, one, but B, let me steer us here for a second.
Go for it.
So, what did I miss? Give me the 10-second overview of what you guys already talked about, so I don't repeat.
I was asking Evan just about like how he got started, and what Corey asked, or not it's Corey, but is Dad of Two Roadside Corey, or
Yeah. Yep.
Corey, yeah. And he asked at what point did Evan say to himself that this thing works? So you went over that, and I think that was pretty much it for the most part, right, Evan?
I'm
Yeah.
yeah. So I have a question for Evan. What do you think about the logistics industry? What's your impression been of freight in general versus kind of your background in real estate? Like, how do they compare? What do you think about it?
I think the thing that stuck out to me so early on is like how shitty drivers are treated. It's like insane.
Yeah.
Like I just did market research before I started the company. I would like call the truck stops and call like truck parking locations, and people wouldn't answer the phone. And if they did answer the phone, they seemed very annoyed, like
Hmm.
that you were even calling. And it's like, well, I'm just
Yeah,
looking for truck, like a space. Click, like, no, like, what is going on? No customer service. They don't give a fuck. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed
yeah,
to cuss on this, but
Yeah. Well,
and that's like the earliest thing that stuck out to me so much. And I think it's the fact that I came from outside the industry that I wasn't like numb to it. It was just like I didn't expect that. I expected like these, companies specifically somewhere around truck parking to be just happy that someone's calling because they're going to bring them business, and it just
yeah,
wasn't that at all.
yeah,
And I would assume, obviously never been a freight broker or anything like that, but I would assume there's those same dynamics across the entire industry. I can't speak for it, but I would guess.
yeah. I can.
might
So
be being
I would
overwhelmed.
echo that. Well, dude, so here's my opinion. So I agree, I think that sentiment is true. The idea that people are just generally a little bit pissed off. I don't think it for certain individuals it might be directed at a certain group of people, drivers, brokers, whoever. But I don't think I think generally like this is a very stressful industry just across the board, and folks are just used to they're used to being treated poorly by their counterparties, be just in multiple scenarios. So drive brokers treating drivers poorly, drivers treating brokers poorly, carriers treating brokers poorly, brokers treating carriers poorly, shippers, nobody showing up, or issues when people show up, or whatever. So stuff's going wrong all the time. So people are like usually kind of default pissed off, and for drivers especially, like all of these things that go wrong, like the shit rolls downhill the fastest at them because they're kind of at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
So they're getting hit with shit all day, right? And the brokers in many scenarios just slightly up the hill, so they're getting hit, and then then it just continues to pick up speed and hits the driver. And so by the time it gets to them, it's going a million miles an hour, and there's all these things that have gone wrong, and there's nothing really in most situations that anyone can really do about it, and that's like a powerless situation to be in. So you just become bitter that there's all these bad things happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that just leads to a general state of just being upset for a lot of people.
And there's
And
just not enough truck parking to begin with, so everybody's trying to
but
pile up
we're
onto
not even,
these.
I'm not even just talking about truck parking. I'm just mean in general. Like if you
I
call
know,
a
but
warehouse,
when
call,
Evan said he was calling these places, and they were like pissed off, or like they
yeah,
were annoyed.
he's potentially trying to bring them money, and they're pissed.
Yeah, right.
And that makes no sense. But it makes sense when you understand that most of the calls that a lot of these places get aren't people trying to give them money. Like it's maybe a sales call, or it's somebody with a serious issue that's not going to do anything for them, right? Or it's just nonsense, because there's lots of cold calls in general in the industry too. Like if you're talking about warehouses, I'm maybe not truck parking operator or truck stop per se, but I don't know what kind of truck call volume truck stops get. But you call warehouses and you try to offer them your business, or you try to understand their business, they usually just tell you to kick rocks. Um, so anyway,
Especially if you're uneducated. Well, mostly if you're uneducated about what most people are uneducated when they reach out to warehouses, right? Like they have no idea what the shipper actually
well,
does.
if you're cold calling them, yes, for sure. Nobody has any idea what anybody's doing really.
They're just like, give me some freight, and
So
they're like, why should I do that?
what what Evan? I'm curious what other. So when you started doing research, Did you immediately try to find people to talk to who seemed credible on the subject and just try to learn from them? Did you how did you approach the research, I guess?
Yeah. So industry stakeholders, so just people in logistics, transportation, trucking that seem to be well respected. Um, Reached out to a bunch of people like that. And then also just looked at truck parking in general and started reaching out to people who owned a lot of truck parking across the US. And from really those two things, getting very similar answers about, truck parking in general and the problem. Um, yeah. So that's really how I went about it. Just really reaching out to what appeared to be like the prominent people.
And at what point did you decide marketplace versus acquiring real estate?
Yeah, I think when I just couldn't wrap my head around how difficult it's going to be to scale a nationwide truck parking business, it's definitely doable. I mean, anything's doable, but I thought there was a way to consolidate and bring it all together and really solve the problem faster by doing a marketplace. I don't know at what exact moment it clicked. Like there was a moment where I had a lunch with a friend that's he's actually building a metaverse and super tech, just complete tech guy, knows nothing about really anything else. And we're at lunch and like he had just raised like $12 million seed round or something crazy. It was back during kind of the madness
Yeah.
ages. And we were just like talking about it, how cool it was, da 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 da. Because we were just like, I'd known him for years. So I started going to tech events years before I ever started this company, just because I was interested in it. And I was doing real estate, and everyone's like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "I don't know. I like tech. This is interesting." And so I made a lot of tech friends, and I watched them kind of go from where I was, just like trying to figure it out, to like them launching some really cool, successful businesses. And we were at lunch with this guy I'd known for years, and I was telling him about it. I was like, "It's this huge opportunity. No one's really doing anything about it." I was like, "I'm just gonna go buy and build a bunch of truck parking." He's like, we're like sitting at this like Asian restaurant. He looks out the window and he goes, "Couldn't you just park a truck like right over there?" And I was just like, and here's how fucking naive I am. I was like, "Well, yeah, I guess, but like, I want to go buy and build it. It's about the real estate." And then, but like, within 6 months of that conversation, I'm pretty sure I had started this company. So it's interesting how your mind, you can be so dead set in some direction that you just ignore like all the good advice you get. And like that was incredible advice. I could have started the company.
Couldn't you just go park over there? And that meaning there's places all over the place that you can park
Yeah,
trucks, but
that's
you
what
just
he
don't
literally
often
said that.
park them there. Yeah,
He
yeah,
took
yeah.
like 2 seconds to think about it. And he was just like, "Yeah, couldn't you just park a
It's
truck like over there?"
I mean, that is kind of a very simple synopsis of the business if you think about it. It's like very, very reasonable. Oh, there's all these places that people aren't parking.
Yeah.
Why don't they just park there?
Yeah, exactly.
And the answer is, well, the answer to that question is why aren't they parking there? It's A, because they don't know that place exists. It's not very well documented. B, whoever owns it isn't just going to willy nilly let anybody, whoever, and their mother park there.
Yeah.
And that's really it.
So you guys are basically putting truck parking on the internet. That's, I mean, in an essence, truck parking on the
Yeah,
internet is just
That
you
sounds like a
don't know
line
where
from
it is.
Silicon
So
Valley.
I'm pretty sure it
But
is.
yes, yes.
We will take that. No,
it
so I
goes.
mean, at the end of the day, we're putting all the back end infrastructure needed for someone to adequately run a truck parking business, and that can be one space, that can be 500 spaces, but
Yep.
there's a back end infrastructure that's needed. The marketing, the booking, the payouts, the billing, the customer service, the tech that actually works extremely well and isn't super clunky. Putting all those things together is what is needed to take that
Yeah.
empty lot that someone has, that they're working 12, 14, 16 hours a day on their own business, where you can approach them and say, "Hey, you're going to spend zero time on this, and we're going to make you, several hundred, several $1,000s a month, depending on the number of spaces. And you're going to create more parking for drivers. It's a much easier conversation when you can say, we're going to handle all of it. It's automated. And you don't have to, you don't have a cleaning fee like Airbnb as well. So
that's nice.
So one thing that I didn't really even understand before I joined the business was just how much work there is to kind of build that back end that you're describing. You know what I mean? Like
we never talk about it.
I know, and I think that's good and bad. I don't think I think it's good, more good than bad, to be clear. But I think that because nobody really cares,
Exactly.
nobody really cares, how you're processing payments, who your payment processor is, what your
Corey,
process
do you care?
is.
I know Corey's on here.
That it works.
Yeah. So it just has to work, and if it works, then nobody cares. If it's broken, then everyone's going to be pissed off. They won't care even then what's happening, but they just will be pissed. But anyway, I mean, it's been pretty cool to see kind of just how, and I know how I can just tell based on the conversations how many iterations and how many cycles the company's already gone through just in terms of its evolution in refining kind of the edges of these processes. And just there's always places that you can get caught up, right, where things can go wrong, just in the sign up process, in the onboarding process, in the payment process, in the payout process, like all these areas. And there's ways that you can lose your path along the way, but that's just through trial and error and through getting caught up and through things going wrong, you continue to refine and get to a point where kind of we're at now. I mean, but we'll probably look back in a year and be like, oh my God, like things were a mess in August of 2024. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
You
it
should have
right
seen
now
us
it feels great.
You should have seen us in August of 2023, man. It was wild. Like Christian and I were just talking about that earlier. It's like it was just complete chaos. I loved it though. I loved every minute of it, but your system goes down, you don't know why. It's some stupid front end bug takes down everything and you're just like, what is going on? And I loved it. And now we're in the kind of this iteration of the business where it's like you said really well, Reed, it's like kind of like refining the edges of the business and those iterations. And then, who knows what we're working on in a year, but I think I know people that have never attempted to build a marketplace or dealt with a marketplace or even invested in a marketplace when they start asking questions about like, can't you just create an app and put it out there? And it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about because
the app is just like that's just the interface for you to actually interact with the rest of the infrastructure that you guys need to set up. So
dude, the other thing is that struck me is how many is just calls, right? Like drivers, and it became obvious to me after the fact, based on my experience working with drivers, is they want solutions to their problems quickly, and that means picking up the phone and calling somebody when there's an issue. Yeah. And our support team, our customer care team, we call them. I mean, like that's something that also surprised me. Tracy, who was the second hire, Evan?
Yeah, one of the first customers and the first hire. I mean, after me.
Dude, she is like 1 in a billion. Like she is a 1 in a billion person. She was a truck driver for 30 something years, and
still has her CEO.
And transitioned into being the head of our support. Essentially, we call it customer care, but support. And now she has a dozen plus employees, all truck drivers that are doing customer support for this business. I mean, this is gonna be a story one day, bro. Like I'm telling you, like this is literally. I'm convinced there's probably no like startup or no tech company has hired this many truck drivers. I promise you. I promise you that.
I think
Like,
that's
and they're all
a really cool, unique thing to you guys.
Oh, it totally is. We talk about it a little bit, but like I don't think we emphasize the fact that, dude, like these guys are all truck drivers and they're all out. They're all. I mean, some of them are still driving, but like, and they work kind of in their spare time. But the point is that like it's almost like I feel like this could be like a sitcom or something. Like a bunch of truck drivers get out of the truck and go work at it like a startup, and they're crushing it. Like
That,
it's awesome.
Yeah, call
It
it
could,
like Freight Alley.
yeah, I
Instead
mean,
of
you could
Silicon Valley,
literally
you call it Freight
it could
Alley.
literally be a TV show. I think like it's
that's
so
awesome.
it is so cool to kind of watch them work because Tracy's got them just it's just like a well-oiled machine, man. It's like it's crazy. Like, and
Yeah.
she's called me. She's reading customer support textbooks and stuff like this. Like
No
no
way.
joke. Yeah, she's got all these
Yeah, she's
processes. Like it's legit. It's
That's
legit.
really cool. I think one thing that I saw in the best drivers that I've ever met were just the amount of diligence that they had to their work and like the level of attention to detail that those best drivers exhibited. And I guess to your point, I've never met Tracy, but seems like she was
We
probably
should
very
have,
detail
bro. We
oriented
should have Tracy would be a great guest for Freight on Friday.
I was about to say I would love
Dude,
I would love
she
to
won't
hear about
she won't
this.
turn her camera on, but she will come here and talk. We should definitely do that.
she's great.
That's actually a
She's
really good
amazing.
idea. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be sweet.
We had a question here. So how do we handle it when a driver arrives and there's no space available at the reservation location?
So that is something that's very common that happens at the major truck stops because you have this extremely high velocity of trucks going in and out constantly with really no regard for where to park. But our locations predominantly are trucking companies, tow truck companies, truck repair shops, warehouses where there's not really public traffic coming in and out. So if there's 10 spaces at this location, it isn't like Johnny from the street is going to pull in and unlock the gate and go and park there. So the instance that you're mentioning, it has happened, but I mean, it's like extremely rare. And we do keep track of it in case we do see an increase, but it's all private lots. So that would require for people to really start going rogue and just pulling on people's private properties, trucking companies' properties, and pulling into their yard and parking. So I think that's it's been a pretty inherent organic mechanism to keep people from just pulling into yards and taking up space, because it's quite an unnatural feeling to pull onto Johnny Trucking LLC's yard and pull and perhaps open a gate or something and in and park. So we really don't have an issue with that.
Christian, I've kind of dominated the questions. What do you got?
No, those were good. Those were honestly pretty good questions. I don't know if I have a one that's structured. I've been trying to think about how to ask a question around like the government funding around truck parking and how that relates to Truck Parking Club. But I know, Evan, you've gone on some government councils and advocated, I think more public parking as well. Like, what are when you go to these government councils, like what are you advocating for there in general?
Yeah, so started getting involved last year. TCA call in Washington, and when I went to that last year, it was really more of going and just understanding what's happening and like how it all works. I went to a ton of meetings with various legislators and like didn't really say anything, just sat and listened to what people were advocating for, a lot of which was more free parking, which we're in support of. And I was just doing it to learn. And now it's more of like, I think there's 3 prongs to helping solve the truck parking issue. One of which is free, public, government funded parking. Second is private sector buying, building, leasing. And then third is the truck parking club model, which is leveraging existing space. All of them have their own pros and cons. On the public government funded side of things, I think there's a lot of opportunity there outside of what people typically talk about. And I'm having conversations with people trying to understand if this is something that we can get support for. But obviously the funding now is going to, more rest areas, perhaps a truck stop that builds on some free parking with the public funding, like a PPP type thing. But for the most part, just more parking at rest areas, which is, extremely costly, and the money gets spent very quickly. Even if it's $1 billion, it gets spent very fast. I think what $1 billion is 10,000 spaces total, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Approximately.
yeah.
So it's
they're 100K to 200K a space if you do the math at the end of the day.
Yeah, so that the money gets eaten up really fast. But another way to look at that, and one way that it appears we might try to advocate for, not a for sure thing, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway, is essentially finding more funding to subsidize private sector use. So what does that mean? That means, the company driver that doesn't get reimbursed, giving them credits so they get more, so on their tax returns they get more money back at the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
And putting $1 billion into something like that, where it helps the private sector between the company drivers that don't get reimbursed and private sector truck parking, whether it's Truck Parking Club or all the other companies that are operating, buying, and building, helping these drivers get more comfortable with a private sector solution and funding, $1 billion or whatever it is of that. And ultimately the driver does get reimbursed through their tax credits. It's an interesting thing we've been bouncing around for several months. Yeah, it's just a different way to go about it. It's kind of like, it's similar to like credits on electric cars.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any shame, in that, because sometimes people throw shade at that for EVs. But in the truck parking case, like, especially if if the government funnels that money to a booming marketplace that, is actually that's actually working really well, then just lowering their overall cost of, rentals, renting spaces is just going to help a lot.
It's more of an immediate solution to I don't think it should take any money away from all the funding that's going into the building free parking. I think it should be two separate things. But that solution, let's say $1 billion goes into it, that's 10,000 spaces, and that's going to take at least a decade to roll that money out and get those areas into place. It will take a decade to do that. Mm-hmm. And 10,000 spaces isn't even enough. So, it's not even close to enough. And so what another solution is
we've already added over 10,000 spaces.
Yeah, exactly. So in like 18 months.
For reference.
Yeah. Wow. And we used less than $1 billion. Put that on the record.
Just barely, just a little bit less. Just a little bit less.
So on average, how many spots are there per location?
Let me run the math. So we have 15,000 or 16,000 spaces. I think it comes out to be 20 or 30 on average.
Okay, it's pretty sizable.
Yeah, and there's a lot of outliers that will skew the average a bit. I mean,
yeah, we have
right.
What's that?
What is it?
That's an entire small fleet. Like 96% of all the fleets in the U.S. are, I think, less than
10, yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I think Reed makes a good point that it's kind of skewed because we'll have a location that has 500 spaces and the demand may be 50 spaces, and then we'll have a location that's one space and for one property, but it's in Atlanta. So, but I just did the numbers. It's 27 spaces per location on average.
Nice. That's pretty good. Is there any plans for like monthly, like a monthly unlimited park anywhere?
That's a great question. It's something I've thought about since day one of the company, and we're looking at ways to implement that. I think the issue, you roll that out, and that previous question that we got about space not being there after you reserve, So imagine you pay $500 a month for a subscription and you roll that out, and then that person can't find parking because it's taken. By taken, I mean, you're not reserving in advance. You're just assuming you're always going to have parking everywhere, right? But let's say you go into Dallas, and for that particular night when you're in Dallas, you're paying the $500 subscription, but everything's taken already, right? So it becomes a very weird scenario that I think, just like kind of Uber early on, putting cars in the right places in the city, that's going to be a highly technical problem we have to solve. And for us, it's not the most important thing today. And Reed knows very well, like I say no to a lot. And that's a really cool thing that I think will be super exciting when we roll it out. But I think we have a lot of other important things,
there's
adding more properties.
That is really just the only thing that matters at this point. Like there needs to be, we need to have every market covered. We need to have, multiple options. And multiple means a lot more than multiple in certain markets too. Like you need to like kind of be able to throw a rock in a metro and hit a spot.
Yeah, because it's not discretionary, right? It's not discretion. It's not a question of like Airbnb, like
day.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want to drive across town to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like Airbnb where it's like, well, I'll drive to the north side of Dallas, like whatever, or like it's a nice Airbnb, whatever. This is like I will not drive 30 minutes in the other direction unless it's the last option.
Yeah, exactly.
Cannot drive 30 minutes.
Yeah, great point.
So
great point.
It is interesting from just comparing it to other marketplace businesses. It's got flavors of each, but it's definitely its own unique thing because the frequency of use the potential frequency of use at least is so high compared to the other ones. Like Uber, you might take an Uber a couple times a week. There are probably some people who take them, once or twice a day. I'm sure there are, but it's probably the vast minority of users. But like every truck needs to park at the end of the day. Every single day, every single one. And many of them already have a space, of course, because they've got a yard or whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that that's a true statement. Every truck on the road needs to park every single night.
Not only a true statement, but it's a really powerful one in support of the fact that of the market being there. I mean, we've known that obviously truck parking is necessary, but just putting it in that context of like, by definition, a truck has to park, at least once a day, right? So
at least, yeah,
guaranteed opportunity there, and it's to stay, right? Like it's not going anywhere either.
Bro, so. It's cool, man. We'll definitely need to have we'll definitely need to have Evan on again in the future. But we'll give Evan the closing thought here before we wrap up in 3 minutes.
Closing thought, huh?
Yeah. What do you got for us? Come on, you got to leave us with something hot, dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
Thanks for giving me a heads up on this. No, I think we're in a very interesting time. I'm just going to speak on truck parking. We're in a very interesting time in truck parking, and there's a lot of. I think it's gotten the attention it deserves probably in the last 12 to 24 months, and now you're seeing kind of results of like a changing. The truck parking market is changing essentially on a daily basis, and there are companies that are trying to innovate. There are companies that are marketplaces like us, and there are public stakeholders that are trying to get more money, and it's this like rapidly evolving place. And then like also most importantly, like drivers are understanding that the economic dynamics of this situation are changing. And drivers on a daily basis on Truck Parking Club are leaving reviews saying, I've never tried paid truck parking before, but I really needed a spot and couldn't find anything. So instead of parking on the shoulder, I parked at one of your lots and really enjoyed it. And I think it's just a super unique time to be in the industry, and have enjoyed building out this company and providing more parking for drivers. And I I'm very excited to see where truck parking as a whole will be in the next 3 to 5 years, because I think it will look, to most drivers, to most property owners, to most truck stops, I think the industry will look drastically different in 3 to 5 years than it currently does today. I think there's so many different forces kind of pulling in different directions that ultimately I think the driver will win. It will be a winning situation for the driver because there's so many stakeholders interested in working on solving this problem. So I think ultimately I think this could be one of the first times where the driver actually ends up getting a win, even though right now I think drivers are looking at it and looking at paid parking and saying that it's going to be a negative. But I think ultimately, as people understand it better, I think they're going to be like, man, there's so many different companies and so many, public's funding it, private sector's funding it, and now we have so many different options.
Yeah.
So I think the future is bright for truck parking in general, from the driver's perspective.
Every time I learn more about Truck Parking Club, I'm more bullish than I was already the last time. So, Evan, thank you so much, man, for coming on. It was great chatting with you again, and hope to have you on soon. Maybe we'll have Tracy on as well soon.
I will make that happen.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Awesome.
So, all right, guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Thanks again.
Yep. Thanks for having me. See you.
See ya.